Hello, hello, and welcome. Welcome once again to the Secrets of the High Demand Coach podcast. And you guessed it, we're here with yet another high demand coach. That is the one, the only Craig Cooke. Now, Craig is a successful entrepreneur who had the foresight to start a digital first company, utilizing the internet long before digital first, digital transformation, and all the other buzzwords we have today were created. With just $1,300 in an Apple computer, he started rhythmnet.com. With a couple of friends, and over the years of struggle and adaptation, Rhythm was ultimately sold to a world-class digital creative agency in 2019. Craig completed a 26-year marathon of running the company as CEO. While at Rhythm, Craig worked with the middle market to large enterprise companies such as American Honda Motors, Beats by Dr. Dre, Segway, US Bank, Abbott Labs, and many other B2B and B2C brands. And he's here with us today. Well, Craig, welcome to the show. So excited to have you here. Just add a little bit of color to this. How does this journey as an entrepreneur lead you to make the leap and become the coach and consultant you are today?
Thank you, Scott, for having me here today. I'm really happy to be here and excited to share with your audience. And a quick note of that 26-year marathon, I equate each year to a mile. So yeah, I was like running a marathon, So, but yeah, the entrepreneurial journey, over that course of time, 26 years, there's a lot of lessons I learned throughout that journey. A lot of mistakes I made, and that's sometimes the best way we can actually learn. It's from mistakes, and as long as you acknowledge them and not repeat. And at this point in my life, I'm really wanting to share all this knowledge and skills, expertise, business wisdom with others. So that's kind of what's led me here to this point today.
That's fantastic. Now, one of the things that to have the success that you've had for the duration that you've had, I've found it's almost a necessity to learn how to build a strong culture. And so I'd love for you to unpack that a little bit. First, I'd like to hear your kind of working definition of, if you will, of a strong culture, and how should executives that are out there listening assess their culture today?
Yeah, that's great. So this is a great topic, and it's really critical for organizational success, in my opinion. And really, it's a reflection of what you want to create in your mind for your business, right? Because your business is really a reflection upon you, what your personality is, what you value. And to really get that across, it's one thing to lead by example, which you need to do, but it's great to articulate that in a format that you can utilize as a communication tool to reinforce your organizational culture to others. So what I recommend is putting together a brand strategy document. And with that document, it has your purpose, like why are you even existing as an organization? And then followed by your vision, where do you think your organization will be in the future, your mission, and then what your values, your personality, characteristics, even like a code, an operating code. And the way I like to set it up is in the form of like positive affirmations. For example, in my company, it started with, I am an integral part of Rhythm. I mean, everyone brings value to the team. And then the rest of them, or we respect the opinions of others. We are a successful digital marketing agency, things of that nature. And what's so important about this, as you communicate this with your team, it's one thing to document it, that's the start. But you need to communicate it to everyone that comes on board. And every hire that actually would come on board, I'd spend an hour with them to take them through this brand document so they can understand what we stand for, and then to reinforce this on an ongoing basis. And then that way, it gets ingrained into people and it becomes natural.
That's so good. So the second part of that question, I want to dive into that a little bit as well, is how can folks kind of look around and really assess how they're doing in that? Should they be looking at whether they have that brand strategy document? Should they be looking at what are some of the factors that you would use to assess the strength of your culture at any given point in time?
Yeah, great question. So it's obviously taking an audit of your internal team, how their behaviors, are they aligned with your brand, the decisions that are being made? Are they in alignment with the brand, what you stand for? Because every action should be in alignment with the brand, right? Because that's what's taking you forward, what you've defined as the brand culture. Now, on another step is there's one thing to be aligned internally, but it's a whole other thing to have that external alignment with the marketplace. Oftentimes they'll be out of alignment. So what can you do there? It's as simple as you have to ask your customers. Send out a survey. We did that at a variety of times, and it's very interesting. A lot of the words we'd ask the question, how would you describe our business? And if you had one word to describe our business and our personality, what would you say? Questions like that. And we would very often get the same descriptors that were in our brand document. Like, for example, professional, right? That was something that was a personality characteristic in our brand. And that was reflected, obviously, to the external marketplace because we would get that back as an answer in these surveys. And just a whole bunch of words. And then we would share that with the team every quarter, having a quarterly meeting with staff to discuss topics, how we're doing, et cetera, but then also time spent on reinforcing the brand culture. So when we did these surveys, of course, we would share that and let everyone know, we're in alignment. We're doing great. Let's keep it going.
That's fantastic. I love that. There's two challenges that I find folks have along this line. And I actually find that nonprofits excel in one and struggle in the other, and businesses tend to excel in one and struggle in the other. And you've hit how we integrate both. So what I see nonprofits do is they tend to define their values and culture by who they serve, right? They are marketing tools to an extent. Now, businesses, more often than not, will start to define it as the internal behaviors that we have, but then those can lose touch with the clients that they serve, right? So how do you see that same thing happening? And two, how do we integrate both of those? And when we use it for marketing, keep the authenticity, right? And when we use it internal, keep the connectedness to our market.
Yeah, that's really a great point. And yes, I've seen that a lot as well. And that's where it's really, it's one thing to define your brand and that's wonderful, but that's only half the battle. The other half is really living it. You have to live your brand. So from the top, at a leadership level, you have to lead by example, because it's one thing that you have this wonderful brand document that's articulated with these wonderful values and customer-facing messages, et cetera, right? But if your team sees leadership acting out of alignment or contrary to what's been defined, then that's a problem. That's going to create a conflict that will then eventually spread to customer interactions, right? Mm-hmm. And then let's say that the management team is aligned and acting as they should. It's their job to continuously reinforce. And I really have to emphasize how important that is. So I mentioned like every quarter reinforcing that. Even at the beginning of every year, having the annual strategy meeting, so we would select a theme for the year. That theme was always in accordance with what we valued as a brand culture, and that reinforced it. And then, of course, like I said, the onboarding, but then various just interactions about how we do team recognition and appreciation. And when there was something someone did, that's an opportunity to bring in, so-and-so did X, and that's a great example of ABC. They're living our brand, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's things like that where it just takes continuous communication, and that's that reinforcement that's needed, because what you want to have happen is that people don't have to think about it, that it becomes natural, like riding a bike. Right. Because once things become natural, then it really flows much easier. And then, people don't have to force it. Things should be natural.
Yeah. So one of the points you made there, and I don't want to gloss over this because I think it's an important one, is that each year when you define these themes, they were in line with a bigger picture, right? They were in the path to where you guys had already defined. How is it that, especially visionary leaders, how do you keep that shiny object syndrome at bay, right? That need to kind of constantly like, oh, it's got to be this or it's got to be exciting. How did you guys do that? And how do you help other executives to make sure that the themes that they're choosing, the objectives that they're choosing on an annual or quarterly basis really are indeed aligned with where they're going and where they've said they're going to go as an organization?
Yeah, that's a common occurrence that I see as well when people chase the shiny object, right? Because there's the hot new trend, right? Especially in my world where I came from, digital marketing, that was a really common occurrence. Whatever the new platform, the new tool, the new tactic, and agencies would like just chase that, right? And really, it's taking a step back and really defining a strategy. There's the world moves so fast today, and everyone is just running and gunning. I see a lot of times where people don't take the time to really articulate a solid business strategy. That strategy should definitely have a variety of organizational goals. And the way I like to categorize it as having goals, and then under those goals, you have objectives. So in order to hit those goals, you need to attain specific objectives. Those objectives, I like to have the SMART model, which a lot of people have heard about, right? And then because the objectives are much more specific than the goals. The goals are normally more general, but the objectives are specific, right? SMART. And then underneath those objectives, a variety of tactics that get into the details of how you're going to execute in order to attain those objectives, which are then going to hit those goals, right? So by doing that and really defining a strategy and an underlying philosophy of how you approach business will help you from chasing these shiny objects that just happen to come up from time to time, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Now, the counterpoint to that is, what if that opportunity comes up, right? How do we prevent ourselves from being blockbuster in the same token? So for those visionaries who's like, but, yeah, what would you say is that opportunity where it's like, oh, okay, it is time to maybe pivot or to reinvent ourselves or to pursue that next thing? How do you approach that?
Yeah, so in that, I like to think in terms of adaptability, and that's extremely important for running an organization because the business world is extremely dynamic, right? It's ever changing, ever evolving. And if you don't change and evolve as an organization, you're going to become stagnant. And then once that happens, chances are things will diminish over time. So I like to kind of think of it like an 80-20 thing where you should have your set of core services or products, right, that you focus on. But kind of in your peripheral version, you have that 20% open-mindedness, awareness of what's happening in the marketplace. And if there's something that does arise that seems feasible for you to latch onto and could benefit your business, then investigate it, spend some time with it. And then perhaps it may end up becoming a core service. And that's an example. In the early days of my business, we were focused on website development. That was our roots, right? But then as we became much more of an integrated agency, that came about by defining a philosophy of combining strategy, design, and technology to offer integrated solutions that achieved business objectives and fulfilled audience needs, right? So with that, there's a variety of core services that developed out of that, like email marketing. Way back in the day before email was a thing, we latched onto that very early and became one of the early resellers of the exact target platform, which eventually got acquired by Salesforce. Then search marketing and digital video, that was another thing that was like, oh, wow, this is interesting. And this is like quite a long time ago, right? Wow, there's a lot of opportunity here. Let's learn how to do this. And that became one of our big offerings under our content production core service. Yeah. So it's really just having that awareness and then reaching out, grabbing it, and then testing it. And then if the test results come out good, then incorporating it into one of your core offerings.
Yeah. it's almost a bit of a paradox, but what I hear in what you're saying, and to kind of pull these together, I think I heard it described once this way, and that is that flexibility requires stability, right? When we have a position of stability, when we have that clear brand strategy, when we have the clear mission and vision values, when we have that clear North Star, it's almost the opposite of what we think, but it gives us the most freedom to be appropriately flexible, right?
Yes. And I think I know where you're going, and I agree. The way I like to think of it is in terms of frameworks, right? So frameworks are allowed to give guidance to people within organizations, individually and as a whole, but they allow for flexibility, right? You don't have to be rigid. You can scale down and up, be flexible with your framework, like a North Star in a sense. And when you have something to guide you, what that does, it helps reduce wasted time, because you're operating at efficiency by not recreating the wheel for operations that you should just have down. And what that does, that creates space. And that space and time that gets created is where creativity comes from, where all things open up to you. And then at that point, when you have that time, that freedom of space and time to create, you're able to innovate and then really study and then allow for that flexibility to take place, and then make a determination as to whether to incorporate that into the framework or not.
So good. So there's a question I like to ask all my guests, and it's this.
Yeah.
What is the biggest secret you wish just wasn't a secret at all? What's that one thing you wish every executive leader out there watching or listening today knew?
Well, this is something that was a game changer for me in running my company. And this is what I work with a lot of professionals one-on-one on, actually. And this is sound a little out there, but it's Qigong, a Qigong practice. What is Qigong? It's an ancient practice that originated from China. It literally means energy skill, or life force energy skill. And it's a way to really remain centered and balanced. I've been a Qigong practitioner for the past 9 years, actually. In 2014, when I came across it, I was very off-centered, out of balance with myself, because of all the demands of running an organization with employee demands, client demands, vendor needs, and then juggling family life. It was just out of balance, right? All that stress and demands, obligations, so forth. By adopting a Qigong practice, after a period of time, I found myself much more centered, much more balanced, and able to manage through all these stresses. The stress still comes, it doesn't stop, but just having the tools available to me to help mitigate that, and to have that clarity of mind to be able to operate at an optimal performance level.
That's fantastic. Now, I believe that you've actually gone to the lengths of writing a book about the topic, or at least a significant portion of it. So tell us a little bit about Business Kung Fu. Why'd you write it, and where can folks find it?
Sure. Yes. Business Kung Fu. The reason I wrote it to begin with is books were my very first passion in life. As soon as I was able to read, I always had a book in my face, like just constantly reading as a little kid. And then, as I grew older. And when I was a teenager, I felt like one day I'd like to write a book. I didn't know what, but I just had that urge. And then fast forward to 2011, I decided, it's that time I write that book. And it took me 12 years to get it done, but hey, that's okay. I got it done. But the concept, Business Kung Fu, where it comes from is from how I took the principles and learnings from studying Chinese Kung Fu and incorporated it into running my company, and all these different attributes, especially like discipline, for example, and then mindset, perseverance, et cetera, et cetera. At its core, it's a mindset book geared for entrepreneurs to help them overcome challenges along their journey. And I do mention Qigong in it, but it's just a little portion of the book. That'll be something down the road that I'll be writing about. But the majority of it is really about all these principles and learnings from martial arts and how I applied it to the company.
Fantastic. So if you'd like to become a business Kung Fu artist, we know exactly the place to do it. Where can we find a copy of the book?
It is available on Amazon in hardcover, paperback, and Kindle format. I plan on releasing it in other channels down the road, but it's fairly new. It's been out for about 4 months or so, and that's where you can get it at the moment. And also, people can download the first chapter for free and learn about what I referred to as the 5 elements of entrepreneurship, which is based on 5 element theory from Chinese culture, and it's very interesting. And people can download that for free at my website at c2pro.io. That's the letter C and then squared spelled out pro.io.
Fantastic. c2pro.io. We'll put that in the show notes. Go grab the first chapter of the book. Go get the full book on Amazon, and you won't regret it. Well, Craig, thanks for being on the show. It was just an honor and privilege having you here. For those of you watching and listening, your time and attention mean the world to us. I hope you got as much out of this conversation as I know I did, and I cannot wait to see you next time. Take care.